Hi, welcome to week 3 of Strategic Communication and Media Relations. This week, we're going to focus on corporate communication, but I want to do a little bit of recap of last week with theories. So, it's important to understand that media is multidisciplinary. There are many facets of media that come together and work together where it doesn't just have to be one type of organization. And theory is the opposite of practice because it is explanatory. You can recognize differences between media and journalism as well, and it helps us predict behaviors. So we talked about a couple different types of theory last week. So theory of social systems, field theory, news values. We talked about gatekeeping as well as professionalism. And now that we have that little bit of a recap, I'm going to go into our readings for this week, which are Jenkins and Singh et al. In 2020. So, starting with Jenkins. Jenkins is the reading that focused on brand reputation and how businesses and organizations are defined by other people. Brand reputation is very important because it does require constant and consistent attention. And sometimes it can be very challenging or near impossible to repair or restore our reputations. So, with brand reputation, it's important to stay in a positive light. Because if we get into such a negative view, we're probably not going to be able to fix that, or it's going to be so challenging and cost us hundreds, thousands, millions of dollars, depending what type of organization it is. This leads us into our reputation management. So the work that businesses do helps ensure that they and the brand that they produce are viewed positively. And there are social media impacts for reputation management. Social media has made reputation management more challenging because of 3 factors. The first being information overload. We have access to so much information at any given time. The next is monitoring challenges. Because we can't monitor every single type of organization that does the same thing we do or people, we have trouble and challenges monitoring that. And finally, time consumption. Time consumption makes it very hard because there is so much information and access out there that we don't necessarily have all the time in the world to consume that. Okay. Next, we're going to move on to AI and how it can help. With AI, tools can actually help us do a couple things. First, it can help us improve accuracy. Now, with the thought of AI, many people are afraid of it or kind of turned off by the thought of using robotics or artificial intelligence. And that's because we often hear of people using them in a negative way or using them in a way that is not the way they were intended to do less work for themselves. However, it can improve accuracy because unlike humans, this AI can improve accuracy because they have access to every given database, and they can search it with a matter of seconds. It can help with enabling quick and easy shifts. Because we can use AI, it can tell us about several different areas as well as continue on work that we've done to other people without the process of meeting to get them caught up to speed. And then finally, it allows monitoring that is quicker and more effective because they can monitor things within seconds. They can have access to every single thing that is on the internet in some facet. This leads us to crisis management, however, and crisis management is a part of reputation management, but it is more than just managing brands and reputations during a time of crisis. We really want to focus on how do we keep our reputation and brand going strong, and what type of crisis strategies are we using should we find ourselves in a time of crisis. Finally, with this reading, we're going to end with the effective reputation management and the 6 steps of effective reputation management tools. So first, what is effective What is effective reputation management? First and foremost, we have to deal with proactivity. We establish these systems because we want businesses and employees to be well informed about what we're doing. We want everybody within our organization to be on the same page, and we want them to be able to make these decisions to protect, develop, and defend their reputations in a positive way. And so we need people who are all on the same page. If we're not on the same page, we're not being proactive, and we're going to have to retroactively fix these issues. So there are 6 steps to effective reputation management. The first, build systems together. These should be used to gather, process, and share information both internally and externally. Having more people involved allows them to bring their expertise to the table, as well as providing all the possible scenarios and discussing all different topics. We can gather that information, process it together, and share that, both internally with everybody in the organization, as well as externally, people who are stakeholders within our organization. Second, ensure the teams are well informed about the business. This goes back to making sure that everybody is proactive and on the same page. 3, develop a plan to spot and handle feedback, both negative and positive. So we want to be able to handle feedback at both a positive and negative viewpoint, right? We want to know what we're doing well, what should we keep doing, but we also need to understand what can we improve upon? What can we change in order to make things better for our organization and stakeholders as well? 4, we need to stay on top of what's going on in the industry and of things that might impact it. So, we need to stay on top of what are other organizations that are similar to us. What are they doing? What are things that might impact how we're doing things? Nobody predicted COVID was going to happen how it did, but what if we could? What if we could understand how that was going to impact our organization? 5, we should ensure top quality media and online monitoring. We need to make sure what we're putting out is top quality, and we need to monitor that to make sure it is being receptive and received well. And 6, encourage our leadership team to value communication and indicate it and include it in decision making. So, with the leadership team valuing communication and communication from people at every step along the way, we're going to include that into our decision making and make the best possible decisions. It's important for people to be able to understand what is going on and what they can do within that organization to make things better for everybody internally and externally. Next, we're going to go into the Sing reading from 2020. So, Sing et al. 2020 talked about social media influencers, or SMIs, and that they have an impact on our reputation of corporate brands in crisis. So, they have impact before, during, and after crisis. And typically, we think that influencers do have positive effects on brands. This is a great thing. But we don't just get this positive effect from SMIs. So where does that come from? First, we need to explore that theoretical background. So a little bit of what we did last week, we're going to talk about now. We talk about corporate crisis. These, according to Dutta and Pulig in 2011, from page 1281, there are unexpected events that threaten a brand's perceived ability to deliver expected benefits. So with corporate crisis, we expect that brands are going to be able to keep up with what they're doing. But because we're in crisis, you might have issues delivering those benefits that have already been a part of the organization and have been delivered to stakeholders in the past. So what do? We need to kind of expect the unexpected. Next, we go into a situation crisis communication theory, which is all about crisis communication managers should match strategic crisis responses to the level of crisis responsibility and reputational threat that is posed by a crisis. COM633 in 95, 98, and updated again in 2007 stated this. So what this means is if we have a crisis, we need to match our response to the crisis. And there are 4 main crisis responses that we could choose. First, diminish. This means that we're going to minimize the amount of responsibility that we place on the organization, right? So we're going to say, this was not our doing, this was not our downfall, and therefore we have no stake in this claim. And that's because, according to that crisis, that's the response that fits. You can deny, asserting that there is no crisis. A few years back, Bluebell, an ice cream company that was based out of Texas and beloved by many Texans, had a listeria outbreak. They denied that there was a listeria outbreak. The problem was people did find out that there was a listeria outbreak, and therefore they didn't have the correct response to the level of crisis. They didn't take responsibility because they said that there was no crisis. Next, you want to rebuild. Rebuilding those relationships with your stakeholders can help redeem that reputation, but only after you have done things to help them regain your trust. So with rebuilding, with the listeria outbreak and Bluebell ice cream, the problem was they didn't actually rebuild their brand, and there was still lots of rebuilding that needed to be done before products were back on the shelves. But that didn't happen. And then a TikTok trend started of the ice cream challenge, where individuals would take ice cream tops off of Bluebell ice cream, and they would lick the ice cream, put the lid back on, and then put it back in the freezer. Many people were getting sick from this because, as part of their rebuilding, they should have put plastic sealant covers, and they never did. So they never really rebuilt or regained the public's trust. And next, we talk about bolstering. When you bolster, you want to tell the stakeholders about past good works of the organization, taking the focus off the bad works that have happened. So these are 4 main crisis responses, and each could be different depending on the level of the crisis that is imposed. Finally, this article really talked about social media influencers, so SMIs, and that they often provide recommendations for products or organizations, leading to positive consumer attitudes and purchasing intentions when SMIs are perceived as trustworthy and useful. The problem is, SMI presence often raises suspicion towards corporate brands because they think there is low credibility and they have resistance to the crisis response message. They feel the SMI was only brought in because they are in a time of crisis. However, if the organization discloses their value-driven motives behind using SMIs and brand partnership, that can counteract the negative effect of SMI presence. So if you say, we're not doing this because we're in crisis, we're doing this because we want to connect with more audiences, or we know that this works with this group over that group, whatever it is, disclosing those value-driven motives really counteracts that negative presence. And finally, research does suggest that partnerships should be made when the organization is not in crisis. So the organization is doing well. Let's bring in an SMI and work together to create good brand partnerships. When SMIs and brands promote products or organizations that are not in crisis, their reputation is more likely to be viewed positively and accepted. So that is the end of the overall summary of week 3. So if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please don't hesitate to reach out. But that's the end of that. So I will see you next week.